Greetings, sisters and brothers. This is Milton Alimadi. I want to make some brief comments on the recent peace agreement signed by the foreign ministers of the Democratic Republic of Congo and neighboring Rwanda, which Rwanda has been launching wars of aggression against the Democratic Republic of the Congo for decades now, together with Uganda. And these countries, the main reason why they launch these wars is to plunder resources from the Congo. Congo is immensely rich in natural and mineral resources. One U.S., I believe it's UN actually, study estimates that the resources are valued at almost $30 trillion. And this is just based on some surveys. I'm sure that a more intensive survey could have the resources valued at even 100 trillion. Congo is a very wealthy country. So Rwanda and Uganda have been invading multiple times, leading to the deaths, according to one estimate, of as many as 7 million Congolese over the last 30 years. So any agreement that is realistic and sustainable, of course, is welcome. The tragedy is that African countries, including the neighboring countries, have not been able to arrange such a peace agreement in all these years. And the primary reason is because once they become involved, they also succumb to Congo's riches and become involved in plundering Congo's resources. So the last regional attempt at one point involved Kenya. Kenya was supposed to send peace forces to form a buffer between Uganda and Rwanda on the one side and Congo on the other side. But then later there were reports that the Kenyan officials had also become involved in plundering Congo's resources. So now President Trump is taking credit for ending a 30-year conflict. It's actually not a 30-year conflict. So before I provide some contextual background, I want to also make it clear that when Uganda and Rwanda invade Congo, they're not doing it only for themselves. They're doing it as puppets and agents of Western multinational corporations. Because Uganda and Congo are not Uganda and Rwanda, and neither is Congo, are not industrialized countries. So the minerals that they steal from the Congo are exported overseas to these multinational countries. So it's actually a genocidal but profitable war. Profitable for the elite, the military and political elite in Rwanda under General Kagame, and in Uganda under General Yoweri Museveni and his imbecilic son, General Muhoozi, who's always tweeting nonsense on X. And then, of course, profitable to the foreign multinational corporations in the industrialized countries that are the ones that consume these minerals ultimately. So for example, Uganda, both Uganda and Rwanda export as much as $1 billion, primarily in gold, annually, that they don't produce within Uganda and Rwanda, but steal from the Congo. every year. So you can see why it is important for these two countries to be constantly invading Congo. They do not want to give away $1 billion in illegal revenue. So let me provide a little bit of the history now to give you a broader context. Congo, as with many African countries, fits into what the late Professor John Henry Clark once said. So Africa has always had the rich minerals that the world has always coveted and the world has always not want to pay for. And he's exactly correct. So we go back to 1880s during the so-called scramble for Africa. Congo ended up being the personal domain, the personal territory of King Leopold II of the Belgians. And of course, the history books have already documented the atrocities, the monstrous atrocities under the Belgian monarch. Estimated deaths of as many as 10 million Congolese during the quest for rubber and ivory. Those were the primary commodities in those days. It was so genocidal that the Belgian government took control of Congo away from King Leopold. If you read Adam Hochschild's book, King Leopold's Ghost, or if you just go on the internet and Google atrocities in Congo under King Leopold II, you'll see these images of maimed Congolese. So in other words, Congolese who would not meet their quota of rubber production or delivering ivory would have their hands or arms severed, just chopped off, no anesthetic, or they would have their feet or legs cut off. And then the photos would be displayed to other Congolese to incentivize them, to make them meet their quota. That was the horrific regime of King Leopold II. So what was the solution? The Belgian government then takes control and makes it an official colony. So colonialism lasts until official colonialism. 1960, when Patrice Lumumba, Pan-African nationalist, wins an election administered by the colonial European authorities. So he becomes the first prime minister. And one of the first acts he does was to ask for renegotiation of the contracts with the mining companies, because the Belgian companies owned all of Congo's copper, which at that time in 1960 was the most valuable resource. And for that, imperialism decided to eliminate Patrice Lumumba. He was only in office for 3 months. The Belgians, the British, the United States CIA involved in overthrowing him and installing, ultimately, the power behind the throne, before he became the official leader, was General Mobutu, later referred as Mobutu Sese Seko. Unknown to Lumumba, Mobutu had actually been recruited by the CIA in 1959, a year before Congo's independence, while he was in Brussels in Belgium. So now, Lumumba is removed. Pan-African nationalists who wanted to serve the best interest of the Congolese people. And ultimately, he was viciously, brutally murdered in January 1961. And the Belgians had made sure that Congo never had a chance by never really leaving, even after official independence, by encouraging Moise Tshombe to secede, to declare that Katanga, which was the copper-rich region, was a separate state. And then this puppet invited Belgium to send in troops, and that was the end of the possibilities of Congo having a stable Pan-African government working in the interest of the Congolese people. So Mobutu rules for about 37 years. He was really the effective power from 1960 up to 1997 when he was overthrown in an invasion led by Uganda and Rwanda. It was actually a popular invasion because it got rid of this US CIA-backed tyrant. But after removing Mobutu and installing first Laurent Kabila as the president of Congo, Uganda and Rwanda started their own form of African imperialism. The current system they have up today, multiple invasions of the Congo to steal its resources, as I indicated earlier, on behalf of Western multinational corporations. And in this process, and this is the 30-year period now that Trump is referring to, the wars, the multiple invasions from Uganda, Rwanda, or supporting, creating, manufacturing so-called opposition guerrilla armies that they themselves control. And the most recent version, of course, is M23, which actually includes thousands of regular Rwanda soldiers under direct command from Rwanda. And if you see, you can Google M23 and look at the images, look at the uniforms they wear, look at the equipment, look at the armored vehicles that they have, and you tell me if this is some guerrilla army. So now we have this peace deal signed June 27. Obviously, if it takes hold, then it is better than what currently prevails, with whatever shortcomings it may have. One of the main criticism that people have leveled is that the US under Trump became interested primarily because the deal includes the United States being able to access Congo's cobalt, coltan, lithium, gold, and other resources. So that's one of the main criticisms. And that is true. Ironically, you then have to ask the question, is Trump's form of resource imperialism any worse than what was prevailing in terms of resource imperialism by the Western corporations, by having Uganda and Rwanda invade Congo, kill tens of thousands of people, cumulatively through the years, amounting to by one estimate to 7 million people, and then stealing the resources without paying any taxes or dividend to the Congolese government, and then shipping these resources overseas. That's the version that prevailed before. That's the version that prevailed throughout every Democratic administration. Biden, Obama, Clinton. So now this is Trump's version, that we will stop the fighting by brokering this deal, And in return, we get resources. So the difference is that Trump is at least saying he will stop the fighting, which has cost the Congolese terribly in terms of lives, women, children. That area, Eastern Congo, is the epicenter of rape. The rape capital of the world has been referred to because of that. The saddest part is that African countries have failed to come together to broker a peace deal, as I indicated earlier, primarily because of the greed of the elite leadership in those countries, that at the end of the day also have become involved in plundering Congo's resources. So now, in the most recent invasion of Congo by Rwanda, under the guise of M23 rebels, the Congolese army was rapidly collapsing. And there's a belief that they might have been able to march all the way to Kinshasa, the capital, thousands of miles away, and have basically installed M23 into power, have a regime change. And that is what compelled the Congolese president, Felix Tshisekedi, to run to the United States and to make this offer: come to my rescue and I give you access to Congo's resources. Of course, it's very ironic because the same United States that was involved in the overthrow of Patrice Lumumba in 1960, and then his brutal murder in 1961, is now the same United States that is being called to come back in and rescue Congo from a new form of imperialism from Uganda and Rwanda on behalf of multinational corporations. So you have the people who are setting the fire in the Congo coming back as the firefighters to extinguish the same fire that they themselves are setting against the people of the Congo. It doesn't get much more ironic than that. So that is where things are in the Congo today. If the current agreement ends fighting because of the involvement of the United States, if Kagame becomes hesitant to continue the multiple invasions because now he understands the United States may be watching, maybe that's the price that the Congolese will have to pay. Until such a day that the Congolese can actually mobilize and rally and be able to defend their own territory without having to mortgage the country's resources to the United States. So those are the brief observations I wanted to make on the so-called peace deal signed June 27, 2025 by the foreign ministers of Rwanda and Uganda in the White House. And I understand both Presidents Kagame and Tshisekedi will also soon be coming to the White House to sign the final version of this peace agreement. Thank you, sisters and brothers.